The mysterious arrival. It was a quiet night on the distant alien planet. The stars above seemed brighter than anything Earth had ever known, twinkling in the deep black sky. A soft wind whispered through the strange alien trees that surrounded the small camp. There was no sound except for the occasional chirp of an unknown creature. The air was thick with the smell of alien plants, a mix of sweet and earthy scents that were unfamiliar to the human senses. John, a rugged explorer and former soldier, sat near the small campfire he had built, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had been on this planet for weeks, studying the wildlife and gathering data for the research team back home. The planet was beautiful, but also mysterious. He had discovered strange ruins, ancient technology, and a sense of power that filled the air. But so far, he hadn't encountered any intelligent life. As he poked at the fire with a stick, his mind wandered. He thought about home, his family, the life he had left behind. He was used to being alone in the wilderness, but something about this place felt different. It felt alive. He wasn't sure why, but the feeling of being watched never went away. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. A soft, almost inaudible rustling came from the edge of the camp, just beyond the glow of the fire. John froze. His heart raced as his hand instinctively moved to the blaster by his side. It was a standard precaution on alien planets, always be ready for anything. He had learned that the hard way. The rustling grew louder. Someone, or something, was moving closer. John squinted into the darkness, his eyes trying to adjust. There was no sign of any animal, no movement of the plants, but the sound was unmistakable. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was a woman, or something that resembled a woman. She was tall and thin, her movements graceful but unnatural. Her skin was a pale, almost translucent color, like moonlight on water. She wore a long, flowing robe that shimmered in the firelight, reflecting strange patterns that seemed to shift and change with every step she took. Her hair was long and silver, flowing behind her like a stream of light. Her eyes, John could see them now, were an unsettling shade of violet, glowing faintly in the darkness. For a moment, neither of them moved. John couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had heard stories of alien encounters, but never had he expected something like this. His instincts told him to stand up, to defend himself, but something about her presence kept him rooted to the spot. The woman stopped a few feet from him, her violet eyes locking with his. She didn't speak. She just stood there, staring at him, as if she were waiting for something. John's mind raced. What was she? What did she want? "Are you?" he began, but his voice faltered. The words didn't come out right. He had no idea how to communicate with her. The woman tilted her head slightly, as if she was trying to understand him too. She raised one delicate hand and pointed toward the entrance of his tent. Then she made a gesture, one that John could only interpret as a sign to invite her inside. John stared at her hand, unsure of what to do. This wasn't a typical situation. He had met other humans on his journeys, but never an alien like this. He had no way of knowing if she was hostile or peaceful, or if she even understood human language. But there was something in her eyes, something in the way she held herself, that told him she wasn't a threat. Despite his doubts, he stood up slowly and motioned for her to follow him. The woman's lips curled into a soft smile, and she moved closer without a word. Her steps were quiet, almost as if she was gliding across the ground. John's mind raced as he led her into the tent. What was going on? Why was she here? And why did she choose him, of all people, to approach? As they stepped inside, the woman looked around, her eyes taking in every detail of the small makeshift shelter. She didn't seem surprised or confused by the human technology. Instead, she appeared calm and composed, as if she had been here before. John offered her a seat, but she simply stood there, her eyes never leaving his. She reached up and removed the strange headpiece that had been covering her hair. Her features were even more beautiful up close, though they were unlike any human he had ever seen. Her face was sharp and angular, with high cheekbones and delicate features that seemed to glow in the dim light. John could barely take his eyes off her. His mind kept racing with questions, but he knew there was no point in asking. He had no way of knowing if she would even understand. Instead, he decided to wait. Wait for her to speak. Wait for her to explain what she wanted. But as the minutes passed, all she did was stand there, watching him with those glowing violet eyes, waiting for him to make the next move. The alien's request. John couldn't shake the feeling that he was in over his head. The woman, or whatever she was, hadn't spoken a word since entering his tent. She simply stood there, her violet eyes never leaving him. It was as if she were waiting for something, waiting for him to do something. But what? What could he possibly do? The silence stretched on, making the air feel heavy, almost suffocating. John shifted uncomfortably, his mind racing with 1,000 questions. Was this a trap? Were there others out there, hidden in the darkness, ready to strike? Or was she just a wanderer from another world, lost and seeking refuge? He had no way of knowing, no way of understanding. Finally, she moved. Slowly, deliberately, the alien woman took a step closer to him. Her movements were fluid, graceful, almost hypnotic. She didn't make a sound as she approached, not even the slightest rustle of fabric. John's breath caught in his throat as she extended one hand toward him. Her fingers were long, delicate, and slightly glowing with a faint light that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. John instinctively recoiled, unsure of what to do. He hadn't experienced anything like this before. He had been trained for all sorts of dangers in space, but this was something else. He didn't know whether to trust her or run for his life. But instead of reaching for his weapon or demanding answers, she simply extended her hand, palm up, toward him. It wasn't threatening. In fact, it felt oddly inviting, as though she were offering him something that only she could provide. Something important. She tilted her head, her glowing violet eyes searching his face. Then, in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper, she spoke. "I need your help," she said, the words heavy with urgency, though her tone remained calm and measured. John blinked, his mind struggling to process the meaning of her words. Her voice wasn't quite like a human's. There was a musical quality to it, a strange resonance that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "What do you need?" he asked, his voice shaky. He wasn't sure if she would understand, but somehow he had a feeling she would. The alien woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she motioned toward the strange device she carried with her, a small, intricate object that seemed to pulse with light. It was made of metal, but unlike any metal John had ever seen before. Its surface was smooth and reflective, like liquid mercury, shifting under the dim light of the campfire. There were symbols etched into its surface, symbols that seemed to shift and change every time John looked at them. She pressed the device into his hands without a word. He hesitated at first, unsure of what he was supposed to do with it. The object felt warm in his palm, as if it were alive in some way. He turned it over in his hands, but the more he looked at it, the more it felt like it was staring back at him, its symbols shifting and pulsing as though it were communicating with him. The woman's voice broke through his thoughts. "I need you to help me activate it," she said, her tone gentle but insistent. "This is my only way to contact my people." John's heart skipped a beat. Activate it. He had no idea what this device was or how to use it. But something about her words, something in the urgency behind them, made him feel like he couldn't just refuse. She needed him. "But I don't know how to use this," he said, his voice filled with uncertainty. I'm not from your planet. I don't understand your technology." She nodded slightly, as though she had expected this. Then, with a graceful movement, she gestured for him to sit down. John, feeling both nervous and curious, sat on a nearby crate, clutching the device in his hands. The woman knelt before him, her violet eyes locking onto his with an intensity that almost took his breath away. "You don't need to understand it," she said. "Your mind will do the rest." John's brow furrowed in confusion. What did she mean? He stared down at the device in his hands, trying to make sense of it. It didn't look like anything he'd ever seen before. Without warning, the woman placed her hand over his. Her touch was cool, almost icy, but there was a strange warmth beneath the surface, like a hidden fire. As her hand touched his, a wave of energy surged through him. It was not a physical sensation. It was something deeper, something more profound. His entire body seemed to hum with energy, his senses heightened, his mind stretched in ways he couldn't comprehend. The symbols on the device began to glow brighter, swirling in patterns that were mesmerizing, dizzying. It was as if the device was feeding information directly into his mind. He saw flashes of strange alien landscapes, heard voices speaking in a language he couldn't understand, felt the pulse of an unknown world deep within him. John gasped, pulling his hand away from the device. His breath was heavy, his heart racing. What had just happened? What was that feeling? The woman didn't move. She waited, her gaze steady and calm. "Now you understand," she said quietly. "Now you know what I need. You are the key to making contact with my people. And you are the one who will help me, whether you want to or not." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. John was no longer sure if he was in control of the situation. The line between what was real and what was not seemed to blur with each passing moment. She had just shared something with him, something that reached into his very soul, and now he was a part of her world, whether he liked it or not. And deep inside, he couldn't help but wonder, what had he just agreed to? The unlikely bond. John's mind buzzed with confusion and awe. The device, the energy he had felt, it was unlike anything he had ever encountered. His world, which had once been so solid, so familiar, now felt fragile and distant. Everything seemed to be shifting around him. But there was no way to escape it. The alien woman, with her violet eyes and calm presence, had tethered him to something far beyond his understanding. She sat across from him now, her expression serene as she watched him recover. Her silver hair shimmered faintly, catching the dim light of the campfire as it flickered in the background. John had no idea what was going on, but he knew one thing for sure. His life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. The strange energy from the device had left his body feeling like it was vibrating on a frequency he couldn't quite comprehend. His muscles ached, but it wasn't from exertion. His mind felt stretched, like something had been opened inside him, and he could sense things he had never sensed before. His vision was sharper, his hearing more acute, and there was a tingling at the back of his skull, as if he could reach into the fabric of the world around him and change it with just a thought. The woman, still silent, seemed to sense his turmoil. Without a word, she reached into her robe and pulled out a small, delicate vial. It glowed with a soft blue light, its contents swirling like liquid stardust. She placed it on the table between them. "Drink this," she said softly. "It will help you understand." John stared at the vial, feeling both drawn to it and repelled. He didn't trust her completely, not yet, but the urgency in her eyes told him that this wasn't a choice. She had already shown him something deeper than human understanding. What harm could a vial do now? If anything, it might bring him closer to the answers he desperately needed. Slowly, almost cautiously, he picked it up and unscrewed the cap. The liquid inside seemed to dance in the light, shimmering with a strange energy. Without thinking, he drank it in one swift motion. The moment the liquid touched his lips, a wave of warmth spread through his body. It was soothing, like a balm to his confused and worn nerves. But then, something strange happened. The warmth didn't stop. It surged deeper, spiraling inside him, until he felt as though his entire body was glowing from the inside out. The alien woman's violet eyes locked onto his, unblinking. "You have begun to understand," she said, her voice now more resonant, as though it carried the weight of ancient knowledge. John gasped as the world around him seemed to shift. The ground beneath him trembled, or at least it felt that way. His vision blurred and then sharpened, and suddenly, he was seeing more than just the inside of the tent. He was seeing the stars, the planets in their orbits, the cosmic energies that pulsed through the universe like veins of light. It was as though the very fabric of space itself was open to him. He could see the subtle glow of energy that connected all things, the flow of time, the whispers of the cosmos. It was beautiful, terrifying, and incomprehensible all at once. His mind reeled from the sheer scope of what he was experiencing. It was too much to process. But then, amid the chaos of cosmic visions, he felt her presence again. The alien woman was there, close, but distant at the same time. Her mind, he realized, was connected to his. The bond they had formed with the device had intertwined their consciousnesses in ways that defied explanation. He could feel her thoughts, her intentions, her emotions. It was as if he had become a part of her, and she had become a part of him. Her voice echoed in his mind, soft and urgent. "We are linked now, John. Our minds are intertwined. You can feel it, can't you? The bond between us." He nodded, though he wasn't sure she could see him. Her voice was everywhere, inside him, outside him, in the very air around them. "I'm not from your world," she continued. "I'm not even from this galaxy. My people, my species, we are scattered across the stars, lost in the endless dark. We've been searching for a way to contact others of our kind, but we cannot do it alone. That is where you come in." John struggled to understand, but a deep, instinctive feeling within him told him that this wasn't a dream, that this wasn't some hallucination. This was real. Whatever had happened when the device had activated, it had opened something inside him, something that allowed him to feel her presence, her purpose. She continued, her voice guiding him through the flood of new information. "My species is dying. We are unable to communicate with each other, and without that connection, we cannot survive. You are the key, John. The device is only the first step. You are the bridge between us." His heart pounded as the weight of her words settled in. A bridge. Between her people and who? What did she mean by that? He wasn't sure if he could grasp the full meaning yet, but the urgency in her tone told him that time was running out. This wasn't just a simple encounter. This was something far bigger, far more dangerous than he could have imagined. "Why me?" he asked, his voice shaky with disbelief. "Why did you choose me?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out, her hand brushing his cheek. The touch was gentle, almost comforting, but there was something in it that made John shiver, something ancient, something vast. "Because," she whispered, "you are the one who has the potential to understand the universe in a way that no one else can. You are the one who can bridge the gap between the stars. You are the one who will help us bring our people back together." John sat in stunned silence, his mind racing with the enormity of what he was hearing. He had come to this planet alone, expecting nothing more than some simple exploration. But now, he was a part of something far greater than himself, and there was no going back. As the night wore on, John and the alien woman, whose name he still didn't know, sat in silence, their minds linked by the mysterious force that had brought them together. In that moment, they weren't just two individuals from different worlds. They were something more, something united by a shared purpose. But as John felt the pull of that bond, a small, nagging thought lingered in the back of his mind. Was he truly ready for the responsibility that lay ahead? Was he ready to face whatever came next? The first ritual. The campfire had long since burned down to embers, and the moon hung high in the alien sky, casting an eerie glow over the strange landscape. The silence of the night felt different now, charged with a palpable tension. John's mind was still reeling from everything that had happened, his mind intertwined with the alien woman's, the overwhelming visions of the stars, and the revelation of his new role as the bridge between their people. He had no time to fully process it all, and yet he could feel the weight of responsibility growing heavier with each passing second. She hadn't said much more since their conversation earlier. Instead, she had quietly gathered a few things from around the camp and began preparing for something. The strange device had been placed on the ground in front of them, glowing with a steady rhythmic pulse. John had no idea what it was or how it worked, but he knew that it was crucial to whatever came next. He had expected her to explain more, to ease his confusion, but instead, she seemed focused, almost distant. Her eyes were fixed on the device, her brow furrowed in concentration. There was a look of deep concentration on her face, and for the first time since she had entered his life, John saw something other than calm in her expression. She looked worried. "Are you going to tell me what's happening?" he asked, his voice breaking the silence. The questions had been building up in his mind, and he could no longer keep them in check. She turned her violet eyes to him, her gaze steady and intense. "You are ready," she said simply, as though the answer to his question was self-evident. "The time has come for the first step of the ritual." John frowned. Ritual? He didn't know what she was talking about, but there was no denying the gravity in her voice. He could feel the air around them grow thick with anticipation. She had been preparing for something, and now it was clear. Whatever it was, it involved him. The woman extended her hand toward him, and he took it hesitantly, unsure of what he was supposed to do next. She led him away from the campfire and toward the center of the clearing, where the ground was soft and covered with strange, glowing flowers. Their petals seemed to pulse with a life of their own, casting an eerie light across the area. At the center of the clearing was a large stone platform, carved with intricate symbols and markings that John couldn't understand. The stone glowed faintly, and there was a hum in the air that seemed to come from deep within the planet itself. John felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary place. He could feel it, the energy in the air, the weight of something ancient and powerful. She stopped at the edge of the platform, turning to face him, her violet eyes locked with his, and for a moment, it felt as if the world had stopped moving. Everything around them became still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "This is where it begins," she said softly. "This is where the connection between us will be strengthened." John swallowed hard. He had no idea what she meant, but the sense of urgency in her voice made it clear that there was no turning back now. He had already crossed the threshold, and whatever came next would change everything. She stepped onto the platform, and he followed her. As soon as his foot touched the stone, the symbols beneath him began to glow brighter, the hum in the air growing louder. The glowing flowers around them seemed to pulse in time with the rhythm of the stone, their light flickering in strange patterns. The woman raised her hands, and the device from earlier levitated in front of her. Its metallic surface gleamed in the moonlight, and the symbols on it began to shift and change once again. She closed her eyes and began to chant in a language John couldn't understand. The words were alien, their tones deep and resonant, vibrating in the very air around them. John felt something stir deep within him, a sensation he couldn't quite explain. His heart raced, and his palms grew sweaty. The energy in the air seemed to flow toward him, filling him with a sense of power and dread. His connection to the woman, this alien being, was growing stronger. He could feel her thoughts, her intentions, flooding his mind. And now, it wasn't just her presence he could sense. It was the power of the ritual itself. As she chanted, the symbols on the platform beneath them began to shift, swirling in intricate patterns. The ground trembled slightly, and John could feel a strange pressure building in the air. His breath quickened as the energy around him intensified. It was as if the planet itself was alive, responding to the ritual. The woman's chant grew louder, her voice rising in pitch. The device in front of her spun, faster and faster, as if caught in the grip of some unseen force. John's head began to swim, his vision blurring. The light around him grew brighter, the energy in the air now almost unbearable. It was as if the very fabric of reality was bending, warping, pulling him toward something beyond his understanding. Without warning, a bolt of light shot from the device, striking the ground at their feet. John gasped as a surge of energy coursed through him, overwhelming his senses. His body tensed, and he felt a deep, searing warmth spread through his chest. The alien woman's voice echoed in his mind once again, more powerful than before. "You must let go, John. Let the energy flow through you. Trust the connection." John's heart pounded in his chest as the world seemed to spiral out of control. He could feel the energy flowing through his veins, through his very soul. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, like a river of pure power coursing through him, threatening to consume him entirely. But then, just as quickly as it had started, the energy began to subside. The light dimmed, the hum faded, and the symbols on the platform stopped glowing. John collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. His body trembled, his muscles sore and exhausted. He could still feel the lingering power within him, but it was no longer overwhelming. It was as if something had changed. Something deep inside him had been unlocked. The woman knelt beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a faint glimmer of something in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. "You have passed the first trial," she said softly. "The connection is stronger now, but there is still much to be done." John's head was spinning, his mind struggling to process everything that had just happened. The ritual, the energy, the connection between them. It was all too much. He had no idea what the next step would be, but one thing was clear: this was just the beginning. And whatever lay ahead, it would take everything he had to face it. A new perspective. The air was still thick with the energy of the ritual, its pulse still echoing in the depths of John's mind. He sat on the stone platform, his body exhausted, his senses overwhelmed by the rush of power that had surged through him. His hands trembled as they rested on his knees, and every breath he took felt labored. It was as if he had been pushed to the brink of his physical limits, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. The alien woman stood beside him, her face calm and composed, as though nothing had changed. Her presence was comforting, but it also felt distant, as if she was somehow beyond his reach, like a star in the sky, distant but bright. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. John's mind was still reeling from the ritual, the connection they had shared, and the flood of alien images and sensations that had rushed through him. His thoughts were chaotic, racing from one thing to the next, and he couldn't seem to catch his breath. He had seen flashes of her world, of her people, of the cosmic forces that bound the universe together. It was as if he had been given a glimpse into something vast, something far beyond the confines of his own human understanding. The woman's voice broke through the haze of his thoughts, gentle but firm. "You are not the same, John. You have begun to see the world in a new way." He looked up at her, his eyes still blurry with exhaustion. He wanted to respond, to ask her 1,000 questions, but the words seemed stuck in his throat. Everything felt different now. He could feel the energy around him, pulsing in the air like a living thing. He could feel her, too, more clearly than ever before. It was as though their minds were no longer separate, but intertwined, bound by an invisible thread that connected them in ways he couldn't fully explain. She extended her hand to him, and he took it without hesitation. Her touch was cool, but it sent a ripple of energy through his body, grounding him, focusing him. "You have just experienced the first trial," she continued. "The energy of our connection has awakened something inside you, something that will allow you to understand the universe in ways that few ever do." John frowned, his mind struggling to process the implications of her words. He could feel the truth in them, deep in his bones. He wasn't just a simple explorer anymore. He wasn't just some man from a distant planet, wandering through the stars. No, he was part of something much greater now, something that was beyond his comprehension. She continued, her voice soft but insistent. "The energy you felt is just a fraction of what is possible. You are capable of far more, John, but you must learn to control it. You must understand what it means to wield this power." His heart raced as she spoke. What did she mean by control? What was this power? And more importantly, What did she expect from him? He had come to this planet to explore, to study, to gather data for the research team back home. But now, it felt as though his purpose had shifted, twisted, into something he hadn't anticipated. "I don't understand," he admitted, his voice hoarse. "What am I supposed to do with all of this? Why me? Why did you choose me for this?" The woman's gaze softened, and she crouched down beside him, her violet eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. "Because," she said quietly, "you are the one who can help us save our people. You are the one who will bridge the gap between the stars. You have the potential to bring us together, to reunite our scattered colonies. You have the power to heal our broken world." John's breath caught in his throat. He could feel the weight of her words settling over him, pressing on his chest like a heavy burden. She wasn't just asking for his help, she was depending on him. Her people were depending on him. His mind swirled with doubt. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a savior. He was just a man who had been thrown into a situation he didn't understand, forced to confront powers he couldn't control. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something in her, a hope, a trust, that made him want to believe. She was showing him a path, and for the first time since he had arrived on this alien planet, he felt the pull of that path, deep inside him. "I don't know how to help you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to save your people." The woman smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "You don't have to do it alone. The power we share is within you now. You will learn to control it. And when the time comes, you will know what to do." John wasn't so sure. The images that had flooded his mind during the ritual still lingered, hazy and incomplete. He had seen glimpses of her world, its breathtaking landscapes, its cities suspended in the sky, its people. But he had also seen the darkness, the broken cities, the scattered colonies, the desperation that filled the air like a poison. Her people were dying, and she needed him to help save them. But how? How could a single human, someone from a distant world, with no connection to her race, possibly help them? The woman seemed to sense his hesitation. "You have already begun the process, John," she said softly. "The connection between us is growing stronger. With every moment, you learn more. With every trial, you will grow." She stepped away from him, her presence still strong and comforting, but she gave him space to think. "You are not the same man who arrived on this planet. You have been changed, and now you must embrace that change. If you want to help us, if you want to fulfill your role, you must learn to trust the power inside you. You must learn to control it." John closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as the weight of her words settled in. He felt the power within him, still simmering just below the surface, waiting to be unlocked. He could feel it, a strange, thrilling force, both beautiful and terrifying. He wasn't sure if he was ready for it, but he knew one thing: there was no going back now. As he opened his eyes, the woman was standing a few paces away, her back to him, looking up at the sky. The stars seemed brighter than ever, their light flickering like the pulse of life itself. She turned to him, her face calm but determined. "The time for hesitation is over," she said. "We must move forward." John nodded slowly, his mind still a whirlwind of uncertainty. But something in her words, something in the way she spoke, ignited a spark inside him. This wasn't just a journey for survival. This was a journey for something greater, for something that could change everything. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. The woman's eyes softened, and for the first time, she smiled. A true smile, full of hope. "Good," she replied. "Then let's begin." The truth revealed. John stood beside the alien woman, now fully aware that his life had been irreversibly altered. The weight of what she had told him, the burden of the responsibility he had accepted, was beginning to settle deep in his bones. The rituals, the energy, the power he had felt surging through his body, none of it was by accident. He wasn't just a passive participant anymore. He was an active force in something far greater than himself. The alien woman, whom he had come to know only as a guide, a mysterious stranger with a mission of her own, had begun to reveal pieces of her past, though it seemed to be the barest hint of a much larger truth. And now she was leading him deeper into that truth, showing him the heart of her people's suffering, and explaining what it truly meant for him to be the bridge between their worlds. As they made their way deeper into the alien landscape, the forest around them had grown denser, the trees taller and more twisted, their branches reaching high into the sky like grasping hands. The air was thick with the scent of strange flowers, and the ground beneath them was soft, almost sponge-like, as if the entire world was alive with energy. "We are close," the alien woman said softly, her voice carrying an unspoken weight. Her eyes were distant, as if she were seeing something far beyond the horizon. "This is where it all began, where the seeds of our downfall were sown." John glanced around at the forest, still trying to absorb the enormity of everything that had happened. He had followed the woman without question, though he couldn't quite shake the feeling that they were heading towards something important, something that would finally make sense of the cryptic messages she had shared with him. "Where did it all go wrong?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, as though speaking louder would shatter the fragile silence that hung in the air. The alien woman stopped in her tracks and turned to face him, her violet eyes locked onto his, full of something that resembled sorrow, but was also tinged with a quiet, unyielding resolve. "Many eons ago, my people were once united," she began, her voice quiet but filled with an ancient sadness. "We were a great civilization, powerful, advanced beyond the limits of what you might understand. Our people lived in harmony with the stars, traveling from world to world, spreading our knowledge, our culture. We had everything, until we didn't." She paused, as if gathering the strength to continue. Her gaze shifted to the glowing trees around them, her expression distant. "Our unity began to crack when we discovered a force, something ancient, far older than any of us. It was not a weapon, nor a technology. It was a force of creation, a cosmic energy capable of shaping reality itself." John's heart skipped a beat. A force of creation. He had felt something like that. The power that surged through him when the ritual had begun. Was this the same energy? Was this what had connected them? The woman seemed to sense his thoughts. "Yes, the same energy you felt," she said, her voice low and somber. "It's what binds the universe together. It flows through everything. The stars, the planets, even you and I. But we were too greedy, too eager to control it." John's mind spun with the implications. A force of creation, a cosmic energy. Was it possible that they had discovered something that could literally reshape the universe? And was that what had led to their downfall? She continued, her tone grave. "At first, it seemed like a blessing. We used it to advance our technology, to heal the sick, to shape worlds. But over time, we began to rely on it too much. The balance that held our civilization together slowly slipped away. We became addicted to the power. And when we tried to control it, we lost everything. The energy became unstable, violent. It ravaged our world, scattering our people across the galaxy." John's chest tightened as he absorbed the enormity of her words. Her people's once great civilization had fallen apart because of this energy, this power they had discovered. And now she had come to him, a human, asking for his help. It seemed absurd, but in his gut, John could feel the truth of it. He was part of something far greater than himself, and the connection he shared with her was the key to fixing what had been broken. "We are scattered now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our colonies are dying. Our people are lost. But there is hope. You, John, are the bridge. You are the one who can help us connect to the energy again, to restore what we have lost." John swallowed hard, trying to process everything she had told him. It was overwhelming, but there was no denying the urgency in her words. This wasn't just about exploring a distant world or helping an alien race. This was about saving a civilization from the brink of extinction. It was about restoring a balance that had been lost to greed and hubris. "And how do I do that?" he asked, his voice strained with a mixture of disbelief and determination. The woman stepped closer to him, her eyes locking with his once again. "The energy is within you, John. You have already begun to tap into it. But you must learn to wield it properly. The power that is now part of you is volatile. It can heal, but it can also destroy. You must control it, or it will consume you." John felt a chill run down his spine. Control it. He had barely begun to understand it. The visions, the sensations, the way the energy had coursed through him. It was like trying to hold lightning in his hands. But there was no turning back now. He was already a part of it. The woman nodded, as if sensing his fear. "It will not be easy. There will be trials, and you will face temptation. The energy will call to you, try to draw you in. But you must resist. Only then will you be able to restore balance and save us." John stared at her, his mind spinning with the enormity of what lay ahead. He had come to this planet as an explorer, but now he was something more. He wasn't just a man from Earth. He was the key to saving a dying civilization, the last hope of a people lost to their own ambition. The woman gave him one final, steady look before turning toward the horizon. "We must go," she said, her voice filled with quiet determination. "The time for hesitation is over. We have no more time to waste." As they began their journey deeper into the alien forest, John felt the weight of their mission settling on his shoulders. He had a new purpose now, one that transcended anything he had ever known. The fate of her people, and perhaps the universe itself, rested in his hands. And as he walked beside her, he couldn't help but wonder, was he truly ready for the power he was about to wield? Was he ready to face the darkness that came with it? The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. John was no longer just an observer. He was a player in something far bigger, far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The ultimate choice. The journey had been long, and the path ahead remained uncertain. John's mind had not stopped racing since he had first set foot on this alien world, but now, with the weight of everything he had learned, every truth revealed to him, he felt a sense of dread begin to gnaw at him. It was no longer just about understanding the energy, or connecting with the alien woman. It was no longer just about exploring the unknown. No, this was something far more personal now. With each step they took deeper into the wilderness, he felt the power within him growing stronger, more demanding. It had started with just a flicker, a distant sensation he could barely grasp. But now it was a constant hum in his veins, a force he couldn't ignore. It felt like a part of him. And yet, at times, it felt alien, dangerous, something he couldn't entirely trust. The woman had told him that if he could learn to control it, he would save her people. But how could he control something that seemed to pulse with a will of its own? They had reached the heart of the forest, a place unlike any John had seen before. The trees here were ancient, their trunks massive, twisted, and gnarled, covered in glowing runes and symbols that pulsed with an eerie light. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, and the ground beneath their feet hummed with energy. There was an overwhelming sense of power here, as if the planet itself was alive with force, vibrating with the same energy that had surged through John during the ritual. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone structure, a temple of sorts, its surface covered with intricate carvings and glowing markings. It was ancient, older than anything John had ever seen, older than the ruins he had explored earlier. The woman stopped in front of the temple, her eyes fixed on it, as though it held the answers to everything. She turned to John, her expression serious, her voice almost a whisper. "This is where it all began," she said. "This is the source of the energy, the place where we first learned to wield it. But it is also the place where we lost everything." John's heart raced as he looked up at the temple. The air around them seemed to thicken, and he could feel the pulse of the energy growing stronger. It was as if the building itself was alive, humming with ancient power, calling to him. "I don't understand," John said, his voice strained with a mix of curiosity and fear. "What happened here? What went wrong?" The woman stepped closer to the temple, her gaze unwavering. "We thought we could control it," she said softly. "But we underestimated the power of the energy. It is not something to be wielded. It is something that must be understood. We lost our way when we sought to control it, and in doing so, we unleashed something far darker than we could have imagined." John felt a chill run down his spine. Something darker. What was she talking about? She turned to face him, her violet eyes reflecting the gravity of her words. "This temple holds the key to everything. It is the place where the energy is both born and sealed. To save my people, you must unlock its secrets. But in doing so, you will have to face the truth of what we did. You will have to decide whether to release the energy once more or to seal it away forever." John felt his heart skip a beat. "And if I choose wrong?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman's gaze softened, but her eyes remained filled with an ancient sadness. "Then everything will be lost. The energy, once unleashed, will consume everything in its path, destroying not only my people but every world it touches. It is a power beyond understanding, John. It can create and destroy in the blink of an eye." John took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The weight of her words hung heavily on him, pressing down with all the force of the universe itself. He had come to this planet expecting a simple research mission, a chance to explore the unknown. But now, standing in front of this ancient temple, he understood the true meaning of what he had become part of. He wasn't just a scientist anymore. He wasn't just an observer. He was a participant in a cosmic struggle, a battle for the very future of this alien race, and perhaps the entire galaxy. The woman took a step closer to him, her voice quiet but resolute. "You have a choice to make, John. You can release the energy, and in doing so, restore balance to my people. But you must understand the cost. You will be changed forever. Your connection to the energy will be permanent, and you will carry the burden of it for the rest of your life." John swallowed hard, his mind spinning with the enormity of the decision before him. The energy that had already begun to change him. It was powerful, yes, but it was also uncontrollable, unpredictable. Could he truly master it? Could he wield it without losing himself to it? "But if I don't release it," he asked, his voice trembling, "what happens then? What happens to you and your people?" The woman's face grew hard, her gaze darkening with sorrow. "If you don't release the energy, my people will die. The energy is the key to our survival, but we cannot access it without your help. We have tried for centuries, but we have failed. Only you, only the one who carries the connection, can unlock its true power. If you choose to seal it away, our species will fade into nothingness. We will be lost, scattered across the stars, forgotten by the universe." John felt his chest tighten as the weight of her words settled in. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about saving a few lives. This was about saving an entire race, an entire culture, and maybe even the future of the stars themselves. He looked at the temple again, the dark, swirling energy pulsing from within it. He could feel it calling to him, beckoning him to open it, to release its power. It was both beautiful and terrifying, like standing at the edge of an abyss, knowing that one wrong step could send him plummeting into the unknown. The woman's voice broke through his thoughts. "You must decide, John. The time for hesitation is over. The energy will not wait. You are the key. Only you can choose." John closed his eyes, his mind filled with conflicting emotions. The responsibility was immense. The power was overwhelming. And yet, despite the fear gnawing at him, he knew that there was no other choice. He couldn't let her people die. He couldn't allow this power to be sealed away forever, forgotten. With a deep, steadying breath, he took a step forward toward the temple. His heart pounded in his chest, and his hands trembled, but he knew what he had to do. "I'm ready," he said, his voice firm despite the storm raging inside him. The woman's face softened, a small but hopeful smile gracing her lips. "Then let us begin." As John reached out to unlock the secrets of the temple, he knew that whatever happened next, he would never be the same. He was no longer just a man from Earth. He was the bridge between worlds, the key to unlocking a power beyond understanding. And whatever lay ahead, he would face it with all the strength he could muster. The energy surged around him, calling to him. And for the first time, John understood. The universe was vast, but he was no longer just a small part of it. He was its instrument. He was its hope. And the future lay in his hands.